Hello there, sword friends. Today I'm having real trouble making coherent thoughts because I'm so excited about how awesome this project is, and it's so cool. Anyway, it is a baby cooking sword from Sword Friend Mike. It is a chef knife. That is what he specializes in making. Mike, incidentally, is Mike of 7th Dragon Knifeworks. He's a former Forged and Fire champion, an all-around awesome dude, a beardsmith, a general great guy. And his links are in the description down below if you want to get anything from Sword Friend Mike, which I would highly recommend. He's made me some custom knives. I reviewed them in the description down below. You can find them there. Also down there, you will find links to videos that I made, which include the breaking of the materials that went into this knife. So Mike is a guy that can make trash into treasure, and that's what he did here. There were 4 different swords that he used to make this chef knife right here, and that's all that it's made from. And each one of those has a story, and I'll talk about that a little bit at the end. And so that's what we're going to do. Anyway, also part of this video that's cool is Mike recorded himself making this thing. So I've consolidated hours of footage down to about 15 minutes of him actually making stuff, and then I will prattle on for some more time, and Mike will also give his thoughts. But I'm going to show you the making of the knife first, then I'm going to show you some close-ups and cool bits of it, then I'm going to show you Mike's thoughts on the project, and then I'll give mine. And hopefully this gives you some idea of just how awesome the project is, and it gives you some ideas for, I don't know, cool stuff that you might do in the future, or why chef knives are awesome, or maybe it's just fun to watch. I don't know. But anyway, that's the plan for the video. Hopefully you enjoy. going to talk a little bit about the knife on its own merits, just as a chef knife. Now, one, does it work? This is not a longevity video, so yes, it works. It cuts really well. It's really sharp. I've whacked it into a few different things. I've used it actually a reasonable amount over the last couple of days, and it is great. It's a great chef knife. It's super sharp, and it should be, because it's a custom awesome knife that would be really expensive, made by a very competent person. And so yes, it does all of those things that you would hope a chef knife would in that category. Aside from that, though, because I haven't used it for years, I don't know when it's going to need sharpening. I haven't done anything particularly abusive to it, nor do I intend to. So I don't know how long it's going to hold up, but that's not really the point. It's going to hold up enough, and either way, I'm going to be really happy cooking with it, even if I have to sharpen it every time. That's because it's got other awesome factors. I'll get to those, though. The blade itself, though, I like the overall profile. I like this kind of clip point area here. I like the rounded spine. I like the hamon on it. I like that it reminds me of Japanese style blades. Oftentimes chef knives that have Damascus patterns make them really, really bold. And Japanese hara, the kind of surface texture, the wood grain pattern in the folding, is often a little bit more subtle. This is bold in one way, but subtle in another, and I happen to like it. The hamon, the differential hardening on here, is also, again, subtly done in here, but still reminds me of like Dragon Fire and stuff, which I think goes with the 7th Dragon Knifeworks. Now, on the surface of the steel, there are some imperfections, some blemishes. I'm not mad about this, because this is kind of a garbage in, treasure out on the other end, and the fact that it's treasure is already really impressive to me. What I'm really happy not to see, though, are folding, like, there's no open welds or anything in here. This is overall really, really well done folding, and Mike did it a handful of times. You only got to see like one fold in the video I made, but he folded it repeatedly, and there aren't open welds or problems in here. There's only some really minor issues, but again, considering what I sent him, I'm really, really impressed with how clean this weld job is and how well it's put together. His grind lines are also really clean. There's like an S grind in here, which makes cutting, you know, you saw him cut a potato, and you've seen me cut a few things. Just overall, it functions really well. It's a well-designed thing made by a competent person. It functions well. It's pretty, and I like the subtlety of it. It reminds me of what it's made from, and like kind of paying a little bit of homage to the Japanese swords that Japanese style swords, I should say, that it's made from. So if I go down here, the handle is made from scabbards, and so I feel like he's a little limited on the material choices that he has, and the spacer is made from another sword, and I'll talk about that here. But the handle is kind of big on top and narrows and fits my pinky down here. So if I want to get a hammer grip on it and get control of it, I feel like my bottom two fingers really lock in, and that I have the dexterous control over it. But when I move up here, it encourages me to use a pinch grip, and also feels really comfortable. So just about any grip is comfy. I can't say that I mind any of them. I wouldn't mind if it were just slightly narrower, but overall I can't say that I have a lot of experience with chef knives and know how wide they should be, frankly. But at the same time, no spot in this feels out of control, like it's going to break my grip or is uncomfortable in any way. And the wood, I honestly thought he used something else until I was going back through the footage and saw that he cut apart a scabbard. This is really handsome. He tied things together in such a way where it looks like multiple slats that are glued together, and it just has some accenty coolness that I honestly wasn't expecting. And he picked parts of the wood, or picked a scabbard anyway, that just had some cool texture to it that overall fit together well. It has this kind of Euro-Japanese style mixture, which is nice because it's an amalgamation of a lot of different kinds of swords. It's not just katana. Katanas went into the blade, but a Chinese sword scabbard went into the handle, as well as a fantasy kind of saber thing went in here as well. So anyway, the handle is comfortable. It seems to hold up reasonably well. This is not something you would throw in the dishwasher, but the handle itself feels good. I can move it around in just about any grip, and it feels right at home in my hand. Every time I pick it up, it makes me smile. I'm just excited to hold it, because also of what it's made from. So I should talk a little bit about that, because that's obviously the special part. Now, the blade is comprised of two different swords, at least insofar as I can tell. One is an Iron Tiger forged T10 blade. The other is a T10 blade that was sent to me from John at RVA Katana. The Iron Tiger forged blade is one that reminds me that my words don't really matter. That's because I didn't review that sword. I reviewed it, and it came out not great. It was not a sword that really impressed me, and one that I didn't really recommend. And a dojo mate of mine at the same school said, I watched your video and I bought that sword anyway. So even though I said I wouldn't recommend it, particularly for the school I study in, somebody that studies in the exact same school I do saw that video and said, you're dumb, Matt. I'm going to buy it anyway. And did. And so that is one sword that went into it, and that's kind of what I think about when I think of the Iron Tiger Forge Mitsudome katana. The other one was cannon fodder. So John at RVA Katana sent me a T10 blade to test against a sword that I was reviewing, and that's linked again in the description down below. And when I went to edge-on-edge contact, that sword broke, and it was basically just cannon fodder, just a thing that was featured on the channel momentarily. And so a sword that I didn't like, that shows that my words don't matter, as well as kind of a nothing sword, a cannon fodder thing that was just used to do edge-on-edge contact, got mixed together into a blade that is awesome and special and like has purpose again, and also is just really, really cool. And because they're made of T10, they're probably reasonably hard. It means that the way Mike tempered it, the edge is probably going to be reasonably durable, and is not a bad choice to make a kitchen knife out of it. I'm kind of surprised that the folding pattern is as bold as it is, given that the materials are supposed to be the same. Now, Iron Tiger Forge tests their metal, and so I have some level of confidence that it is in fact T10, but I don't know exactly if I misheard John or if that sword wasn't T10, so maybe that accounts for some of what's going on. Regardless, though, two swords that were not super consequential turned into a blade that is, and I find that absolutely fascinating. They've been given new life, new purpose, and a grand one at that. Now, the handle has a little bit more story to it, I think. So the scale, or the handle itself, the wood part, is made out of the Song Hand Dao from LK Chen. That's one of the scabbards that Mike used to make this thing. So I sent that over to him. He ground it down, flattened it out, and glued it together in such a way that it comprised the wood. And the Song Hand Dao holds a special place in my heart for reviews, because if anyone says that destructive reviews are stupid and don't really do anything, I can point to that video. Now, that video showed that there was a problem with the manufacturer of the Song Hand Dao, because I got one example, and when I did abuse stuff to it and I struck the metal barrel, the sword broke at the hilt and flew back at me. And they sent a second example for me to test out, and I struck it on the same metal barrel, and it again broke at the hilt and flew back at me in the same spot, kind of showing there was a problem. The manufacturer improved it. Now they make a better sword. Cool beans. But I had to abuse the sword in order to get it to fail in that spot, and that wouldn't have been exposed if I had done anything else. I had chopped branches, I had done other abusive things, but conceivably, if somebody had accidentally missed and hit their stand in the wrong way, it could have turned into a helicopter of doom. That sword had something that needed to be addressed from a manufacturing perspective, and that was identified in that review by that abuse. And so I think it kind of highlights one of the reasons I really do these reviews and where they offer some help. The little spacer here, is made out of the worst sword I've ever reviewed, and that is the sword from Al Ayyubi. The sword was pointless. It was the worst. It was bad at everything a sword should be. It was sold as a functional sword for over $300, as I recall, but the handle like poked you and then exploded upon use, and the hilt was made out of like resin, and the tang of the blade was cut down in such a way to like hold the resin together, but at the expense of structural integrity, and it had like a 1/4 inch or 1/8 of an inch of steel, like, you know, trying to like hold the sword together right at the ricasso area. It was terrible and had no purpose being used as a sword, but now it has purpose being used as a spacer in this knife. And so it's given that purpose as well, and it reminds me like, oh, you know, even the gems can find purpose again. So those are the cool things. It's poetry to me to see all of these swords that broke turned into something functional and usable again, and that each one of them has a story, and I'm thrilled. I'm thrilled. It's so cool. Every time I pick it up, it's so cool. So cool as I think it is, let's hear what Mike has to say about it.
My thoughts on the project. For me, this was a pretty good example of everything going incredibly mediocre. I've definitely had worse projects. I can't get a good... Probably won't get it very good on camera, but I've definitely had worse projects, and I've definitely had better. This is just one that every step of the way, there was nothing that went so wrong that I'm like, okay, it's time to scrap the project. But I think there are definitely things that could have went better. Again, nothing that is project ending. I do like that you can kind of, actually not even kind of, you can a lot see the S grind there. That's super cool. Yeah, it all came out pretty mediocre. There's a part in the video where it just magically got like that much shorter. There was a little bit of a bend in it. I tapped it straight. Tip just popped off. That kind of sucks. Because it looks like it was meant to be, you know, like 1.5 inches longer. But that's what she said aside. It still came out pretty alright. It's a really nice cutter. I test cut with it when it was still at 120 grit, and it cut amazing. I couldn't ask for better in terms of cutting performance. That's the one thing on this knife that did come out top notch. The spacer came out really cool. I don't know if it'll focus, probably not, but the cable Damascus on the sword that I made this out of really pops out in that. Yeah, overall I think it came out, it's going to be a wonderfully functional knife. Aesthetically, maybe not the most pleasing thing in the world, but yeah, this thing's going to be a monster in the kitchen for sure. Not only with its size, it did come out, like I said, it was supposed to be pretty large. That wasn't really the goal, but I ended up with a lot more steel in the billet than I thought. Usually I lose more to scale than I did this time. Don't know why that is. Just didn't. And I tempered it very, very, very low, which means that a lot of this hardened edge steel is very brittle. But I don't know what this is made out of. It's just, I knew it was differentially hardened, so it is a high carbon, low alloy steel of some kind, and there was, I think, 2 different swords that went into it, and I don't know what either of those mixes were. So I just left it as hard as possible, being as it is a kitchen knife, that's what you want anyway. But it does leave the edge as hard as possible, but a little bit brittle. My final thing that I guess I want to touch on is like who this kind of knife is for. And the answer to that is complicated. So if you are a YouTube sword destroyer and you happen to be friends with a guy who really likes taking old stuff and forge welding it into a different shape and then drawing it out, you know, like, yeah, that works out pretty good. Me and Matt have done a lot of trading back and forth over the years. This is one of the things that I'm giving him because he's given me lots of things. But I don't know, like if this were like a paying customer, I don't really know how to justify what this price tag would be, which would be something like $1,200 or $1,500 for all the work that went into this particular piece, because it was made from trash. Maybe if you're like a long-time martial arts practitioner and you break your favorite blade or something, like I could see maybe some sentimental value going into having it remade into something that you can use every single day, just like you did in the gym or a dojo, whatever. I'm not familiar with the terms of that kind of thing. To me, anywhere you practice a thing would be a gym. Or maybe like a relative that had passed away and they had a sword that fell out of maintenance or something like that, and it was super rusty and it just didn't look good as a sword anymore. You know, maybe something like that. I'm not entirely sure, but I don't know. It would be a really specific use case for this kind of thing, other than, hey, I sent broken swords to a guy and he made them into something usable again that I can make dinner with. These were featured on my channel. Now they're being made into something that I can use again on my channel. Like, that's kind of neat. But again, I don't know. I don't know who this knife would be for, other than just for the cool factor. But there you go. That's my thoughts on the project. It came out, like I said, will be a wicked performer. Don't know if it justifies what that kind of work would cost from me. That would be completely up to the buyer. But there you go. There is the knife, the handle, and my thoughts. And now I will shut up and...
Mike's a really humble guy and probably doesn't give himself enough credit, but he did mention something that I think warrants further exploration. That's, who is this knife for? Well, I think there's a lot of people that are willing to pay to feel close to something. And there's another knife Mike has made for me that is made out of old pieces that were around my grandmother's house that I took and sent him, that he made into a knife after she passed away. And that is still something that every one of my relatives clamors after trying to get to feel close. We used to go over to Grandma's on Sunday, and we used to make breakfast, and using that knife to make breakfast on Sunday is like a special kind of thing. It makes us feel connected to Grandma again. And that's a special thing. That's special to people that have everything and don't want anything for a gift. They want that knife and they want to cook breakfast with it. That's kind of a special thing. Now this one is special to me, and obviously it's special because it's made out of stuff that I broke, and I think it's really nifty and cool, and maybe there's even other people out there that would want a chef knife out of stuff that I broke. But the fact that Mike can take things that are actually, you know, genuinely touch your soul and turn them into a chef knife that you can feel close to, because when you cook with love. You want to make something that feeds your family, and that's, I don't know, that's a special thing. And it goes beyond the performance of the knife or how long it holds an edge, but feeling that connection to somebody you've lost, or a place you want to be, or whatever happens to be sentimental to you, is something that Mike can probably incorporate into a knife. It doesn't have to be a $1,500 chef knife either, but it can be something small, something simple, and to you, very, very meaningful. And so I think that's who it's for. And anyone who's human is a candidate for that. So anyway, if that is interesting to you, that would be what I would encourage you to think about, and contact Mike about if you want something similar. Anyway, that's all I got. Hopefully this has been an interesting video. Thank you to Mike. Thank you 1,000 times. This is so cool. I am going to cook with it always. Cheers, and thanks for watching. Dragon Knifeworks, Michael Curley of 7th Dragon Knifeworks, and I've featured his videos or his stuff, and so I have this is a baby cooking knife. This 7th are linked in the description, so if you see them throughout the course of the making. Is somebody behind me? Do close-ups of the knife. I'm going to talk about moving it around, how good a knife is it, and then I'll wrap up with some closing thoughts and stuff. But nope, that's not how it's going to win it. So I'm going to talk about the knife a little bit, what I like about it, what I don't like about it. I'm going to show you the making process of it. That's not actually how it's going to work. Something similar to this is how it's going to work. Now, down there as well are there is some videos that you will find. Make coherent thoughts, Matt. Hello there, sword friends. Today I am struggling with some project. 15 minutes of intro, Matt. New record. His thoughts on the project, and then I'll wrap it up with my thoughts on the project. But that is, no, not the format. In making blah, 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 blah.